Hello, my name is Deborah Aram Gumadu. I'm in grade 12 and this is my visual arts HL exhibition. The theme of my exhibition is mental identity, and in my theme I focused on how one loses and gains their mental identity, so their understanding of themselves and how they view themselves, basically their self-concept. So in my theme, there are 5 stages of losing one's mental identity and then 4 stages of regaining that identity. And so my first work is titled In My Head. This work and for this work, I focused on the adolescents. And normally in adolescence, whilst an individual is developing, they tend to focus on certain features of themselves, whether in the positive or negative way. So in this artwork, I looked at how an adolescent might look at themselves in a negative perspective. And so in the artwork, we see the bigger picture and then a smaller picture which the individual has in their head. And so over here we see a beautiful young lady, and this in here is how she views herself. My second work is based on the concept of depression. And so in this work, I looked at visualizing the dark mind of an individual who is depressed. And so over here we see a silhouette and then the bigger person then again. And so we see that the person is dying on the inside, which is basically what depression is. So we see that every vine of happiness, greenery, as it approaches the silhouette, dies, becomes darker, which is dying. My third work is titled A Swing in Time. I based this on the saying, a stitch in time saves 9. And so from the second work, we can see that the person is aware of what's happening to them. They are aware that they are dying on the inside. They are becoming more negative, more depressed. And so instead of working on themselves, they tend to procrastinate. And so A Swing in Time visualizes the fact that instead of working on themselves, the individual is holding themselves back, thinking that they are holding time back, but time is moving, but they are not moving with time in terms of working on themselves. The fourth work is a clown smile. And so in this work, we see that this is the fourth phase of losing one's mental identity. And so in this work, we see a bigger picture, which is the person smiling, and then a smaller picture which is in the person's face in a pensive mood. And so in this work, I try to communicate the fact that individuals that are the happiest could be the saddest in chambers. And so that's the sad clown paradox. That's what this work is about. The fifth work is titled Heart or Mind. And so from the clown smile, the individual is trying to decide whether to hold on to their hearts, to go forward with their hearts, which would show them a more positive outlook on life, a more positive outlook on life, and then lead them to be a better person for themselves, or still follow their mind, which will lead them through all the negative stages of losing their mental identity. In trying to decide whether to choose their heart or their mind, they eventually black out. And so the work titled Blackout is the stage or a transitional stage where the individual becomes numb to what's around them. They tend to feel like they are having an out-of-body experience where they don't know what's happening around them and they just watch their life pass them by. This stage is the beginning to the series of stages which leads an individual to gain their mental identity. And so in following the blackout stage, I went with the decision to visualize what would happen if an individual should choose to follow their hearts in terms of looking out for a more positive outlook on life. And so this work is called Beyond the Inside. And then in the work we have the individual following their hearts from the dark side of their mind and looking out to a greener pasture or a positive life. This is the second stage in the series of gaining or regaining one's mental identity. So over here, the title is Gone with the Wind, and so Gone with the Wind portrays self-recovery, where the individual is letting go of the pain of their past, and then they are letting go of the pain of their past. And so I used butterflies to symbolize healing, and so the butterflies in this work have come down to help the person heal and let go of the pain of their past. This work is the third stage of gaining one's mental identity, and so from letting go of the pain of their past, they tend to bloom, and so it's about self-growth. They get a more positive outlook and a more they instead of being pessimistic, they are optimistic on what life would give them after these stages. And so over here is bloom. This work is the fourth stage of gaining one's mental identity, and this stage would take an individual throughout their life should they still follow their hearts, throughout their mind, or until they encounter another negative experience in their life. And so in this work is titled Show Me to Me, and so Show Me to Me visualizes self-actualization, where the individual realizes their true potential and the pain of their past and their past experiences, which they have been trying to get rid of this whole time, finally peels off them to reveal who they actually are to them.
My name is Rice Maoli, and my artworks describe the phase I went through after I lost my grandma. For my first artwork, titled A Trap Soul Can Be Set Free with Music Rather Than Death. In the artwork, I have a violin which represents music and literature, and also I have a scar which represents death, or in this case my suicidal thoughts, and a lamp here representing my soul. Okay, so this A Trap Soul Can Be Set Free with Music Rather Than Death is what my parents used to say to me when I was always thinking about suicide, as in the scar over here. So I started listening to classic music, which is why I use a violin over here. And also whenever I listen to this type of song, it's always enlightening my soul, which is why you see the lights brighten up in the lamp. And then going to my second artwork, the skull here being trapped in the box is talking about my trap soul, or my suicide thoughts being trapped in my corner, or should I say my trap space. And the flower outside the box talks about the beautiful things that the world has to talk about, and that's how I came with my art title, There's More to Life When You Think Outside the Box. So this skull in the box talks about how I didn't want to really go out there to go and see what the world was all about. I wanted to be in my space and with myself, because I wasn't happy with what's happened after I lost my grandma. So I always trapped myself in my room, didn't want to go out. And the flower outside here represents the beautiful things life had to offer, which I was missing out on. And coming here, we have a skull again representing death, and then the flowers representing beauty outside life. So this is where my parents were telling me that I should think about the beautiful parts of life, try and think about the good aspects of life. But instead of doing that, I was stubborn on my suicide thoughts and was rather trying to make suicide look like a good thing. Which is why I have the flowers in the skull and I have a rose here. But I did all this to try and decorate the death. And the art title for this week is Utilize the Eyes of the Beholder. But this comes to a different interpretation, because my parents wanted me to see what life was more about, the beautiful parts of life. This artwork is titled Look at the Bright Side. This place, my parents were trying to tell me that I should look at the bright side of life, I should come up with a dark space. So at this part you see the dark, I've cleared this place dark yellow, transition to a bright side. And also, the purple foreground is used to talk about um, positivity, positive vibes, and everything. And even though I was trying to do what they wanted me to do, trying to think about the beautiful parts of life, I was still thinking about suicide. And like I said, it was a very stubborn thought. That's why I kept thinking about it. And also, this work is titled "Death and Life Depends on What You Feed the Soul." This is something my parents told me, but generally I was always listening to depressed songs and all that. But so this instead they tried buying me books, trying to so that I read them, so they could feed my soul and like make me lighten up. Okay, this artwork is titled "Reflection." Purple for the color, purple for reflection, and then the pots. The pots is used to signify what I decide to take in my life, my next decision in life. And you see, when you have a pot and you buy flowers to plant inside, depending on how you take care of the flowers, it can turn out good or bad. In this case, the flowers are the advices my parents had given me, and me taking care of the flowers is me taking advice whether to go on with this and start a whole new life or still be in my dark space. So this part of the painting is lighter than this light, because this part talks about the bright side or me transition to the new beginning, and the dark side talks about how I decide to still be on my depressed path. And coming to this artwork, it's called A New Beginning. So this is my decision. This is me deciding to start a new life, forget about the whole depressing thing, forget about suicide thoughts and everything. So in this painting I use orchids to represent positivity, and I use green for the background to talk about growth, as I was able to grow out of that space, and also yellow for joy. Now coming to this art piece, this is a rock installation, and this is titled "You Are My Rock." So the phrase "You Are My Rock" is used to describe someone who is your healer. Like when I say "I'm a rock," I mean you help me a lot. You are my resting shoulder. In this case, my parents are my rock because they helped me to get out of this phase I was in. And I painted this red and yellow to talk about the joy in life I got from my parents. As yellow talks about joy and red talks about love. And that's what I got from my parents. Thank
you. As an artist interested in architecture, I have observed the physical development control within Rwanda and some parts of Ghana, and that's what I highlight in my artwork. The first artwork is Kigali #1, named Concentrated Dots, which is a photograph printed on canvas. It highlights the concentrated buildings in Kigali, which seems to be unplanned. The second is also a photograph called Colored Roofs. It was a 50 by 38 art piece. Also highlights the same issue of unplanned settlements in Rwanda. Here I had to edit the buildings to sort of align towards my interest and my intention. So I increase the saturation on the roofs to draw more attention to it. The last Kigali piece is Kigali, the mosque. So here it's a mosque surrounded by unplanned settlements. Throughout I'm still highlighting the same theme of unplanned settlement, which leads to some slums. Fourth is Jamestown, a beautiful location which is disrupted by how distorted the buildings look and how clumsy the buildings look. It's also highlighted in this piece. The fifth work is a paper collage work where I highlight unplanned settlements in Ashama. The sixth is of Cape Coast around Elvina Castle. The buildings there don't seem very well done. They seem unplanned, which runs throughout my pieces. So this Cape Coast, which is an oil on canvas art piece. So the seventh artwork has three angles of the same place, which is Old Fadama. So a close-up, the first angle is a close-up of Old Fadama, the buildings, how faded and distorted they look. The second is the environment, the living situation. And the third is a photo I took of a friend. who is representing the effects of living in such an environment. Here I used coffee to create this artwork, and I included some photographs which are from a different angle. Behind, the background has symbols of lungs which represent the respiratory system. The red rope that cuts through indicates the link between all the images and the consequence of living in such that situation. Yeah, so now for the next work, which is quite a small piece, it's a photograph, a drone shot of Accra Central. And lastly, we have here a construction and assemblage work, which I created to highlight how clumsy the buildings are, so the audience gets a 3D view of how these buildings look. So the beauty of the nature is being distracted by the clumsy structures. This is for my final piece. Thank you.